Hey future Vancouverites, today's video is all about the pros and the cons of living in downtown Vancouver. And downtown Vancouver by all means is an amazing place to live. Over 120,000 people live in just 3.5 square kilometers. It's Canada's most densely populated downtown. And so we're gonna get into not only why is it such a great place to live, but also some of the downsides, because frankly, there are some downsides. And if you're thinking of moving to downtown Vancouver, you wanna know what those downsides are so you can go in with your eyes completely wide open. Are you ready for it? Let's get into it. My name is Sebastian Albrecht with the Living in Vancouver, BC team. We're getting right into the pros here. Number one is urban amenities. And right at your doorstep, no matter where you are downtown, you're gonna have bars and restaurants and nightlife at your disposal. You can spend infinite amounts of money if you want to at a moment's notice, but it's terribly convenient when you just don't have to think about where you're gonna eat or what you're gonna do. If you are a fan of nightlife, if you're a fan of going out and spending time with friends and loved ones, your options are really endless when you live downtown. And on top of all of that going on, you also have all of the music venues. If you love to go out to see concerts, live events, going to the theater, going to see plays, going to see the symphony orchestra, going to see live sporting events like the Vancouver Canucks, like the Whitecaps and the BC Lions. All of those things are going on in the downtown core. And so you will, if you don't want to be, you will never be bored. You also, on top of that, have some of the best shopping in the city with Pacific Centre Mall right downtown. And Robson Street is sort of the outdoor epicenter of shopping in Metro Vancouver as well. All of that is right at your fingertips. More than likely, you're also going to be incredibly close to work. If you're not just working from home and you're still needing to go into the office, downtown Vancouver is where the majority of businesses have their head offices. So more likely than not, that is where you're going to be working. And if you're not, it's fairly easy to get from downtown out into the other areas where your office may be as well. Outdoor access is one of the big pluses of being downtown. Yes, you are in the most urban environment you could possibly be in the city, but there's still nature at your fingertips. Most significantly is that there's Stanley Park right at the edge of downtown, right at the edge of the West End. And there's David Lamb Park as well. And then you're surrounded, well, not surrounded, but to the southwest would be all of the beaches. There's English Bay Beach, there's Second Beach and Third Beach. And so you have a really close connection to the water. And on top of that, you have the seawall that surrounds downtown. And so you have this beautiful access to nature that is really unprecedented throughout the city. On top of all of that, you're less than a half an hour away from the North Shore Mountains. And so you could be in complete wilderness in less than half an hour. So you can be in prime downtown Vancouver 1 minute, and 30 minutes later you could be in an area of the North Shore Mountains where you may not see another human being for days if you kept going in the right direction. That is definitely something that people love about living in downtown Vancouver. This real dichotomy between urban living and the benefits of the outdoors and of nature that you get in Vancouver. Number three is walkability. The walkability score of downtown Vancouver is frankly off the charts. If they could give a walk score over 100, it would be in downtown Vancouver. Everything is literally at your doorstep. It's an incredibly densely populated neighborhood. It's just 3.5 square kilometers, roughly 15 blocks by 20 blocks. You'd barely get out of breath running from one end of downtown to the other. There's really no need to own a car. If there's any place in Vancouver, and there's many places, many parts of Vancouver where cars these days really aren't all that necessary, but if there's one place where it's absolutely not necessary, where you can get by without a car, it would be in downtown Vancouver. Everything that you could want, you can walk to, whether you live at one extreme of downtown or the other. Getting kids to school, getting to work, picking up your dry cleaning, going to a great restaurant, going to a concert, all of that can be done really easily without a car. And when you need a car, you can simply use a car share for longer trips to get into the mountains, to go hiking, to go visit friends in, I don't know, Surrey or Langley. All of that is possible, and more people are definitely living in downtown Vancouver without vehicles. It's an incredibly walkable neighborhood. And pro number four of living in downtown Vancouver are the views. No matter where you look in downtown Vancouver, you will be absolutely blown away by the incredible views of nature around you, and occasionally of urban views that you see. The skyscape can be really overwhelming, but it's the views of the mountains and the ocean and the beaches that I think really people love and that keep people in downtown Vancouver. So I'm thinking in Yaletown, you can get some amazing views of False Creek, as an example, in the west end of English Bay and of the North Shore Mountains. And in Coal Harbour, absolutely of the harbor itself and of the North Shore Mountains overlooking Stanley Park. No matter where you are in downtown Vancouver, if you get up high enough, look down the right corridor, there are these protected corridor views, protected views all around you of nature. And that's what so many people love about Vancouver and what so many people love about living in downtown Vancouver. And it really is absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. Pro number 5 of living in downtown Vancouver is its central location. Really the epicenter of the city, of the region is downtown Vancouver, and everything has grown from that point, from that central point. And it's grown very organically over the course of 140 years since the city was founded, roughly in 1886. As a result, you can get from downtown Vancouver pretty easily to the north, to the east, and to the west and to the south. These days, getting to the airport, as an example, just hop on the SkyTrain to get out there, the Canada line. Pretty easy to get to UBC, that's the furthest west you can get. Getting up to the North Shore Mountains isn't that bad, as long as the bridge traffic is clear. Heading out east, you can do that pretty easily. We don't have a highway connecting us from downtown Vancouver to the Trans-Canada Highway, but there are arterials that get out that way. And so it's a very fast commute, no matter what direction you're going, no matter where you want to go from downtown Vancouver. And so many people, that really works for. Like if you're a couple and one of you, as an example, works UBC and one of you works, works in the airlines. And so, you're commuting in two different directions. Downtown Vancouver can be a really convenient place for people who have that kind of situation. If you're getting any kind of value out of this video, it would really help me out if you hit the thumbs up button and also smash that subscribe button if you want to see more of me, as I do put out videos just like this one about living in and moving to Vancouver, BC every single week. I'd also really love to hear from you. If there's a pro or a con that you think I've missed, be sure to comment down below. Now let's get back to the video. All right, now it's time to get into the cons. And there are cons to living in downtown Vancouver, as wonderful as it may be. But con number 1 is the noise. As we've gone over, downtown Vancouver is an incredibly densely populated place. And so with so many people living so close together, it's tough to find some peace and quiet. You can find it in Stanley Park, as an example. You could be entirely on your own somewhere in Stanley Park. But for the most part, you're going to be surrounded by large groups of other people, and those people kind of traveling around. All of that causes noise. And there's things like supercars and really loud motorcycles, and there's events that happen, so where things really get inconvenient and they get loud, and on the weekends things get a lot louder, and there's a lot more the nightlife that goes on in downtown Vancouver. There's a lot more people that come from other parts of the city and converge on downtown to go out, and when they go out, they have a little too much to drink, and when people have too much to drink, they tend to get a little bit too loud, and thus the noise complaints. And that's where there can be some downsides to living in downtown. And then the other thing to be aware of is that it is really the most likely place that you're going to find tourists. And the time of year where you're going to see the most tourists is during the summer months. And so for people visiting Vancouver, downtown Vancouver is a really strong draw. And for some people, all of that, the noise, the density of people just can be kind of annoying. But if you're thinking of not just visiting Vancouver, but actually moving to Vancouver, well, I'm a real estate agent that's helped hundreds of people do just that. And if you're thinking of moving to Vancouver, I can help you as well. My contact information is right here on the screen. Reach out anytime and we can begin that conversation about your move to Vancouver. So con number 2 is the cost. Vancouver is an expensive city, as we all know, but the most expensive part of the city is downtown Vancouver. It's the epicenter of everything, as we've gone over, and that's where land is most expensive, pretty much in the entire Lower Mainland. And so you're going to be paying a pretty penny to be living downtown. More than anything, it's the cost of real estate. And that's true for both renting and for buying. And we'll start with renting. But the typical 1-bedroom in downtown Vancouver these days in October of 2023 is going to cost you about $3,000 a month, and it's going to cost you about $3,800 a month for a 2-bedroom. 3 bedrooms are really, really tough to find, but if you do, they're going to be close to $5,000 a month. and they're generally going to be townhouses rather than condos, and there are no houses. In terms of buying, you're looking at anywhere from $1,100 a square foot to about $1,500 a square foot, but you can pay even more. You can get well over $2,000 a square foot in downtown Vancouver. And that means that a typical one bedroom in downtown Vancouver to buy today would cost somewhere around $700,000, give or take. If you want to live downtown, you're going to have to be prepared to pay for it. And it's predominantly that cost of real estate. The other thing that can cost more, the nightlife, the restaurants, the bars, those restaurants and bars and the nightlife all has to pay more money to be downtown for the real estate. So they also have to charge you more to walk in through the door. Same thing with grocery stores. So you're going to find pretty much everything that is downtown will cost you more money. If you want to find cheaper options, well, then you have to leave the downtown core to find those options. And con number 3 is the lack of schools. I'm going to include daycares and schools in this, but the city really wasn't expecting so many families to stay downtown. When they redeveloped, when they planned for the expansion of the downtown core, for the amount of residential property that we have today, starting in the early 80s, they didn't ever imagine that so many people would stay with families. They expected that those people would move out into the more single-family residential areas and out into the suburbs once they had families. But the reality is that so many, because of how wonderful it is to live downtown, how safe and convenient it is, so many young families have chosen to remain downtown. The problem with that is they haven't provided school space, the seats in the schools for the number of kids that are there. And there's just 3 elementary schools. There's one relatively newer one across town. There's Lord Roberts in the West End, and there's Elsie Roy in Yaletown. So those 3 elementary schools are what we currently have. There's going to be a 4th one added in Coal Harbour pretty soon. I think construction is underway. So that should alleviate things a little bit. And then there's just one high school, that's King George Secondary School in the West End. There's no plans, as far as I know, for another secondary school to go in the downtown core. What many people are finding is if they're not able to get into those schools, they end up having to go to schools that are just on the outskirts of downtown. And none of that is very far or incredibly inconvenient, but it is annoying not to be able to walk to schools, as that is a real benefit of living in Vancouver. The same thing goes for daycares. There's just not enough daycare space for the kids that are currently in the downtown core. More and more of that needs to be provided, and hopefully more and more of that will be provided. But at the moment, you're going to find it challenging if you have children, both for schools and for daycares. Con number 4 is crime. There's definitely an abundance of crime in downtown. Predominantly, it is going to be, as most other parts of the city, it is petty crime, it is property crime focused, and it's driven by homelessness, drug addiction, and it's people looking to get a quick fix. So they're looking for quick and easy things to turn into cash and get their next hit. And unfortunately, what that means is if you leave a valuable in a car in downtown Vancouver, it's more than likely to get broken into, a quick smash and grab. And if you have a nice bike, it's more than likely to get stripped or stolen. And so you really want to be aware of that when you're in downtown Vancouver. I would say that, it's a safe place for children to be. It's a safe place to walk down the street. It's a safe place to walk home at night. Very few times that I've ever been concerned about my own safety in Vancouver. In fact, I don't know if there ever has been. No, I can't think of a single time in my life where I've been personally concerned about my safety in downtown Vancouver. And I've walked in the downtown east side and some of the, what would be considered the worst crime areas of the entire city and really of the entire country. But for the most part, people in these areas, they don't want to cause you trouble. They're driven by the need for drugs. They're trying to figure out ways to get those drugs, but they're not going to harm you. They're just going to break into your car if you're not looking. So that's the kind of crime you have to be concerned about. And con number 5 is traffic and parking. And this comes down to really such a highly densely populated neighborhood. There's a very limited amount of street area and parking options, and all those people have to go somewhere. So rush hour to and from downtown, it can make a lot of the downtown streets kind of like gridlock, and it's not a lot of fun to get around. And it's again why, you know, alternatives to driving have become so popular, because it's quite often faster to walk 10 blocks than it is to drive 10 blocks. And when you have those options at your doorstep, you might as well. And the same thing goes for parking. And the thing is, if you live downtown, you more than likely have your own parking spot. Newer buildings may not have parking spots for smaller units like the studios and maybe the one bedrooms, but more than likely if you're renting or you've purchased your home, you'll have your own dedicated parking spot. This will only impact you if you're a family that has more than one car, in which case you can potentially rent another parking spot from somebody in the building, having friends come and visit you. And I would say that's probably one of the things, like if I'm visiting people that live downtown, it is kind of annoying to have to find parking downtown. So personally, if I'm going downtown, I do whatever I can not to take my own personal vehicle. And so that will mean either taking an Uber or taking a car share downtown or taking the SkyTrain. And those are ways that I personally get downtown. But I don't know, if you have friends who just feel like they have to drive everywhere, you may find that they don't want to come to visit you if you don't have guest parking in your building and they're required to park on the street. And incidentally, street parking in Vancouver has become incredibly expensive, to the tune of somewhere around $10, $12 an hour. Now this is in October of 2023. I'm sure it's only going to get more expensive in the not too distant future. There are some parking lots in downtown Vancouver, but you know, for the most part, those have been transformed into condominium buildings. We're seeing fewer and fewer of those. And so those parking options are disappearing, and free parking options in downtown Vancouver have really disappeared. Almost impossible to find it at all. So there we have the pros and the cons of living in downtown Vancouver. I hope you got some kind of value out of that video, and if you did, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. That will put the YouTube algorithm to work and go out and find other people just like you that will like this video as well. Also hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos of me doing just this, talking about living in and moving to Vancouver, BC. I do this every single week. Speaking of moving to Vancouver, BC, I am a real estate agent that's helped hundreds of people move to Vancouver, BC over my 16-year career. And if you're thinking of moving to Vancouver, I would love to help you as well. Reach out. My contact information is right there on the screen. You can start that conversation with me at your convenience whenever you are ready. And in the meantime, I think you might want to check out this video right here, a video that I did recently all about living in downtown Vancouver and about the different areas and why one area might be more up your alley than another, which ones are better and worse, what parts of downtown Vancouver might work for you best. In the meantime, I'm going to be right back here next week. Please do come back and join me. I hope to see you then.